A controversy has been stirring in the Christian music world after Forrest Frank announced he felt convicted by the Lord not to attend the Dove Awards, an event many see as the Grammys of Christian music. His decision sparked quite a reaction, especially from country star Jelly Roll, who seemed to take unction to Frank's conviction. And while Jelly Roll delivered an emotional, faith-filled speech at the Dove Awards, a different version of him showed up just a few days later in front of Michigan football fans. A stark contrast that's raising serious questions about his authenticity and public faith. We'll take a closer look at what's happening across the contemporary Christian music scene, with Maverick City music marred in a lawsuit from former members, and former Newsboys frontman Michael Tait having tapes released of his apology to people he took advantage of, leaving many wondering what is going on in the CCM world, and has it always been wrought with hypocrisy, lies, and wickedness? Stay with us as we look at these and other stories on the 511 News. Welcome back to the 511 News. I'm your host, Chad Davidson of GoodFight Ministries, and on today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Christian contemporary music scene, specifically with the controversy of Forrest Frank and Jelly Roll. I know not many people know that he's a part of CCM, but apparently he is. But before we get into that, we would love for you to like this video as well as subscribe to the GoodFight Ministries YouTube channel. And if you feel so led, please leave a 5-star review. All those things just help the algorithm. They help us get these messages out all the more. Hey there, guys. Hate to interrupt the video, but we wanted to give you a chance to see some of the projects that GoodFight Ministries has worked on. And so here's a chance. Take a look.
Many consider the church a safe place for the gospel. But what if some churches aren't teaching the gospel at all?
The church is a whore, and she's my mother.
Good Fight Film's startling documentary details how big money infiltrated today's churches to promote pagan mysticism, world government, a one-world religion, and even Marxism.
There's power in listening to the heretic. We need to listen to a few heretics.
The submerging church. Support us by owning it today on DVD or stream it on demand. Learn more at the link below or goodfight.org.
And if you would like to support GoodFight Ministries, you can go to patreon.com/GoodFight and become a Patreon subscriber there. Now, back to the video. Now, we are going to be playing a little bit later, I think something that's really important when it comes to people that are now taking a stand for Christian music against others, specifically when it comes to Jelly Roll and Forrest Frank and so forth. But we're going to be playing a video of something that happened right next to each other so that you guys can see that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, and it's very dangerous to take advice from people and to even be encouraged biblically from people that probably are giving other people other advice and pushing them down a dark, disgusting, and I would say broad road. But we also should look at the Christian contemporary music scene as a whole. And a lot of people have looked at this. They see there is a lot of money to be made in this whole scene because Christians are people of worship. We are told both in Colossians and Ephesians, it's almost the same exact wording, just a little bit different. But Paul writes to both of those churches, and these letters were circulated to other churches, and they're here for us today, written by the Holy Spirit. And it says that we are supposed to teach one another with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, making melody in our heart to the Lord. And so we are a people of worship. We have an entire book of Psalms with 150 chapters of worship. We are people that worship our King. When we look at the early church, when Pliny the Younger was writing about how to squash the Christians out and writing to the emperor, this is how we'll do it. One of the things he noticed was that these Christians, they sing to Christ as if he is a God. And we do because he is not a God, but he is the God. And so we are marked as people that worship. And it should be something that the outside world looks into us and says, man, they really love their God and they worship him. I want that to be true of my life. I want to be people of worship. And the most joyful people I know are people that sing songs to the Lord all the time, not just because they're in front of a congregation, not just because they're at church and it happens to be on the Lord's day and worship is led for a half hour right before the teaching starts. But people of worship is something that I think should mark each and every one of us. So with all of that said, the Christian contemporary music scene, and I'll refer to it quite often as the CCM world, this has been just absolutely marred in controversy. Not only because some have seemingly had just, I want to make money. I mean, that obviously is one effect of it, but their private lives not meeting their public personas has been a huge issue. And Maverick City Music is a big group that came out a few years ago, quite popular, and they've had a number of controversies. We'll get into some of those, but I just saw this one came up as I was watching what was going on with the Dove Awards, Forrest Frank, Jelly Roll, and so forth. And this was an article that I had read, quote, Maverick City Music, an award-winning worship collective, is mired in chaos amid the exodus of two high-profile members and a lawsuit claiming the CEO engaged in fraud and exploitation. In a statement posted to Instagram October 6, Chandler Moore, 30 years old, announced his departure from Maverick City Music, writing, quote, these last 2 years, I've been locked in on what really matters in my life and my career. It's been scary at times, but it's also been full of fresh vision and real excitement about the future. With that, I've made the bittersweet decision to end my relationship with Maverick City Music. When we started Mav, I was grateful to have community and belonging while fulfilling my dream of making music that would help people experience God, and we did that in ways I couldn't have imagined. Moore went on to thank fans and fellow members of the collective, and he promised to continue playing music and said, I know there may be press and conversation about certain business matters that my legal team is handling, but my heart, my energy, and my focus are on what's ahead. Those business matters come into further view in a lawsuit filed on Moore's behalf in federal court October 1st. The suit accuses Norman Gyamfi, Maverick City Music's business manager, of, quote, taking advantage of a creative musical artist and violating the trust the artist placed in the manager. Now, if we were just talking simply about music, if we were just talking simply about Christians and this whole idea of lawsuits and so forth, it's a sad thing that this would happen. It's a sad thing that this is out in the forefront. When you read even in 1 Corinthians, one of the biggest issues there is they're trying to file lawsuits and so forth. He's like, you guys are going to judge angels. What are you guys doing? Handle this stuff between you. I don't know the situation. A lot of times, I really have no idea who their manager is. A lot of times, these guys are connected to big record labels. Once money gets involved like that, big time stadiums that they sell out, and a lot of times those are non-believers and things like that do take place. And the more people that you have more hands in, the likelihood more money in, the likelihood more corruption takes place, and that does happen. But Maverick City Music at one point did kick out Dante Bowe. If you remember, there were pictures that had surfaced. It seemed like he was taking some provocative pictures. And then he came out with like a secular music video where he's basically like shirtless, dancing around with provocative ladies at the beach. And you know what? That's what they said. We're not going to be having Mr. Dante Bowe with the sensual stuff connected. And Dante Bowe recently, it seems like he's like, I want to get back in the CCM water, and posted this just a couple days ago on his Instagram, quote, I'm going to give my life to making worship about Jesus again. No more focusing high energy with high praise. It has to look and sound different, straight, vertical. I'm done with the celebrity fashion driven worship. I only want to look up again. And that would be great. It's just hard to really trust people that, we could get deep into the weeds here. And if you guys are new to Good Fight, and this is the first time you're hearing of us, you can check out our series on Bethel. We have a 6-part series where we go through the teachings and some of the ways that some of their worship artists that people sing on Sundays and pay money to CCLI and so forth to pay those worship songs, how they actually go about writing some of that music in, I would call, witchcraft ways, whether it's through their sozo prayer meetings and so forth, and that they're not somebody that you should be teaming up with. And we'll even be playing a video later in this very episode using somebody who used to be a part of Bethel, talking about some of the CCM machine, as we will go into that just a little bit later. But if Bethel or Maverick City Music or Dante Bowe or one of these are not the ones that you go, oh, this is all messed up. This one, Michael Tait, there have been audio clips now that have gone out of his apology. And if you forget what happened with Michael Tait, he was the frontman of the Newsboys. Michael Tait was also caught up in a huge controversy of taking advantage of both men and women, it seems like, forcing himself upon them. It's not been something that has been hidden any longer. And sadly enough, when it comes to CCM, one of the things we're bringing this up about is the fact that this was something that, according to even Corey Asbury, that it seems like everyone in the CCM world kind of knew that he was into this stuff. But this is kind of an update on what's going on. Joe did an entire show on the subject when it first came out. You can check out in the link in the description here. But an audio of a July phone call released in October 2025 captured Tate apologizing to one of his alleged victims. He says, quote, "I've destroyed my world around me." And Tate admitted to inappropriately touching the younger musician, who was identified by the pseudonym Lucas. Multiple men, including 3 who spoke to People magazine in August, have publicly accused Tate of SA and described their experiences of alleged grooming, manipulation, and assault. One accuser alleges there are many more victims. The allegations against Tate include, of course, SA, grooming, and abuse of drugs spanning over a decade. A report also accuses Tate of having been present during another man's alleged SA by a member of his crew, and there was even video of that at a hotel. So that kind of lays the groundwork of some of the controversy, the major controversies that are going on in the CCM world. But this one, even though it's not major, this one was interesting because Forrest Frank, who's probably one of the most popular Christian artists out there right now with some of his music, shares a lot on his Twitter page. And he kind of uses it almost like a diary. I'm not saying this is a great suggestion that people should be doing that. Some of those thoughts, maybe you should go back and forth with your wife and friends at church and see if they're the right things, and that's fine. But I actually didn't mind what he had to say here, and I want you guys to hear this clip of his heart sharing his convictions regarding the Dove Awards, which he won 3 awards this year. He won, I believe, even more last year and actually attended last year. But these were his comments regarding the Dove Awards and whether or not he would attend this year.
As Christians, it's hard to know where the line in the sand is between being in the world and not of the world. And as a Christian artist, I dress kind of like the world. I kind of look like the world. My music can kind of sound like the world. So where's the line in the sand drawn? And I'm convicted personally that a line that I can draw is that I will not receive a trophy for something that is from Jesus and for Jesus. And I was wrestling with this last year. I even said that on stage at the Dove Awards. I said, I'm still struggling with the concept of receiving this award, but all glory to Jesus. Every name will fade away, including mine, except for one name. But I feel a conviction to go even a step further and say, I don't know if I even want to step on the stage. I don't know if I want to step in the room. And so I have decided to take a stance of non-participation. I will not be attending the Doves or the Grammys. I hope to be an example to the youth that the trophy is our salvation. The trophy is that my name is listed in the book of life and I get to have eternal life. What good is a piece of metal going to do compared to that?
So I want to comment on a few of those things, and just that stands alone. Let's say we don't know who Forrest Frank is, anything like that. You hear that, you're like, okay, that is actually pretty good. And I love when people do share their convictions. I don't have a problem with that post at all of what he's saying, especially because he has been there. He's sat there and gave speeches at the Dove Awards after receiving this. But I wanted to talk about just his statement about in the world, not of the world. And one of my favorite early church documents is the Epistle of Diognetus to Mothetes. And in chapter 5, it talks about the manner of the Christians. I want to read this. It says, "For the Christians are distinguished from other men neither by country, nor language, nor the customs which they observe. For they neither inhabit cities of their own, nor employ a peculiar form of speech, nor lead a life which is marked out by any singularity. The course of conduct which they follow has not been devised by any speculation or deliberation of inquisitive men, nor do they, like some, proclaim themselves the advocates of any merely human doctrines, but inhabiting Greek as well as barbarian cities, according as the lot of each of them has determined, and following the customs of the natives in respect to clothing, food, and the rest of their ordinary conduct, they display to us their wonderful and confessedly striking method of life. They dwell in their own countries, but simply as sojourners. As citizens, they share in all things with others, and yet endure all things as if foreigners. Every foreign land is to them as their native country, and every land of their birth as a land of strangers. They marry, as do all others. They beget children, but they do not destroy their offspring. They have a common table, but not a common bed. They are in the flesh, but they do not live after the flesh. They pass their days on earth, but they are citizens of heaven. They obey the prescribed laws and at the same time surpass the laws by their lives. They love all men and are persecuted by all. They are unknown and condemned. They are put to death and restored to life. They are poor, yet make many rich. They are in lack of all things and yet abound in all. They are dishonored, and yet in their very dishonor they are glorified. They are evil spoken of, and yet they are justified. They are reviled and blessed. They are insulted and repay the insult with honor. They do good, yet are punished as evildoers. When punished, they rejoice as if quickened into life. They are assailed by the Jews as foreigners and are persecuted by the Greeks. Yet those who hate them are unable to assign any reason for their hatred. According to the early church, being in the world and not of the world is by their conduct, not by their outward appearance. It is by the fact that they follow Jesus. The term Christian, when you read it in the New Testament, is a derogatory term. They were first called Christians in Antioch. If you are reviled by being called a Christian, glorify God in this name. The very name Christian is to be an insult from the world because you follow Christ. It is because of your conduct of following Christ that you can be called a Christian artist if you are truly following Christ. And the problem is many of these artists don't actually follow Christ. The problem is they do not for the Lord and his glory. I believe what happens is they do it because they feel obligated to. They do it for financial reasons. And you look at a case like Michael Tait for decades was doing this behind the scenes, and people were just allowing it, knowing about it. That's according to people in that scene. It's really hard. And I want to play this because maybe you heard Forrest Frank, and then you're like, yeah, but I don't know. These guys may be doing it for this reason, that reason. And Jeremy Riddle was, I believe, a worship pastor for many years up in Redding at Bethel, and then was down in Anaheim, closer to us, about an hour away from where we're at in Simi Valley. And he was involved there with a vineyard church as well, which, you know, they have their own issues. And I want to go over a little bit about what he said. And there's even been a ton of stuff there at that church, at the vineyard he was involved at, that have a lot of issues. But because he's in that scene, I want him to explain how some of this works and his conviction about some of these awards, because I think even though very, very weary of anybody that would be involved in Bethel for that long and the vineyard movement, really what he's saying here is very interesting for someone who has been there and done that, and giving us a little insight on maybe why somebody like Forrest goes, yeah, I went last year, I'm not doing it this time.
I just think it's important for you guys to know that I've come through so much. I've been through so much. I have seen so much, you know, and my heart is not to throw stones here, guys. It's not to sit in the judgment seat. I can't afford to be in that position. You just need to know I've been an accomplice. I've been a part of all of these things that I'm going to be talking about.
The first thing, and the reason I wanted to play this as well, is because as he mentions, I was a part of it. I was an accomplice here. And so when it comes to this, that insight is really, really important to hear someone who was there describe it as you continue to listen to him describe what's really going on with these award ceremonies.
And again, my issue and my contention and the case that I'm going to make is with the reward system itself. And I'll just be very blunt and just say I do not believe that the GMA Dove Award system for awarding people is Christian. And I know that's a strong statement, and I'm going to explain it. If you receive, for instance, Song of the Year, it's simply because your song was more popular, it was played in more churches, and essentially it's streamed or sold more copies than any of your other brothers and sisters. It is according to sales and popularity. And so when I say things like the GMA Dove Award system isn't Christian, it's just because that's not a Christian value system. No one's going to, from the world, is going to look into our system and our way of awarding. Oh, you award according to sales and popularity? Oh yeah, that provokes me, that's challenging. No, it looks exactly like them. It's exactly according to how they award. And there's nothing of character in our current award system. It doesn't even matter if people are living in a way that's utterly contrary to the gospel. As long as they're selling something, we're awarding them, and that is not Jesus.
So yeah, a popularity contest, as he mentions there. It's not a Christian value system. It's how many people are printing this out and playing it at your churches. And so for him, not a Christian value system. And I totally get that. Totally understand what he is saying there. But others, as I mentioned in the very beginning, took unction to this, said, hey, that's not right. And some people loved what Forrest Frank had said. But here's what Jelly Roll posted in regards to Forrest Frank's comments. Quote, won't receive trophy for something from Jesus for Jesus, but will take the profits from something from Jesus for Jesus. Maybe I'm missing something here. LOL. Just as a starting point, I would say, to that statement is, Jelly Roll, you have made millions of dollars singing people into drunken stupors and anger. I just think it's really silly. And I do think that this is the number one way that people will come at Christians, because there are wicked people who do wicked things with money. Kenneth Copeland exists, right? These guys, Word of Faith teachers exist. And sadly enough, that is used against faithful men of God. I don't know Forrest Frank enough to tell you that, but I'm just saying that will be used without a doubt against faithful men of God who are workers worthy of their wages, and then applied as if they are also Kenneth Copeland. And this kind of dog whistle of throwing it out, oh, it's money, it's profits. It's one of those things that you're just like, it's not an honest take, especially from someone who has made so much money making money off profanity and now is trying to make it off the Christian scene. But Forrest Frank actually responded, and then here's what he had to say.
So I wasn't going to respond to this comment because I didn't want to bring any unnecessary drama. I posted my personal conviction. It triggered a lot of people. I had no idea that was going to happen. But now Fox News has brought it up in People Magazine, so I feel like I'm inclined to speak on it. All I'm going to say to you, Jelly, is I love this question. This is the question that kept me from making Christian music for so many years, because I didn't want to make a business out of worship music. I didn't want to make a business out of Jesus. And so I actually didn't participate. And then one day I felt like God was telling me to release, I'll call it my quiet time song. And I did. And here's the thing. Legally, it was self-produced and self-written. So legally, that money comes to me. What I do with that money after it legally comes to me, I'm never going to tell anybody, because your left hand isn't supposed to know from your right hand. I might give 90% of my money away. I might give 10% of my money away, somewhere in between, but y'all are never going to know that, because that's my relationship with Jesus. But I love this conversation, and I'm willing to be refined in any area. Anyways, I'm just stoked by this comment. This is something that I would love to figure out.
So he responded to him not in kind, but in a kind manner. And it is interesting when people do work, and people have no problem even tipping at Starbucks, and yet when somebody does put their talents, whatever those may be, and they happen to be Christian, it's automatically like, no, we own you actually, and you dance when we tell you to dance, and that doesn't seem right either. It seems completely apropos for somebody to be that way towards other Christians. But Jelly Roll actually gave a speech at the Dove Awards after being in one of the most awkward kind of sing and dance things with Brandon Lake, as they were covered in water. I don't know what was going on for their song Heartfelt Hallelujah. And he gave a speech, and I want you guys to hear it.
I ain't been this nervous since I went to criminal court, y'all. I was listening to him, and I was thinking about Matthew when he talks about the least. And I realized that I'm standing here because people took time with the least. The world is hearing about Jesus like they haven't in decades right now. And while we are hearing about Jesus, I encourage you to put faith on your feet and feet on your faith. Go feed the poor. Go visit the ones in jail. Go show them who Jesus was. And we're done talking. It's time to show.
Now, I saw a lot of Christians sharing this, be like, this is great. We need to go after the least of these. Absolutely. I will just say in context, the least of those theirs are those in Christ. Not that we shouldn't visit prisons as well and share the gospel there. I've been so blessed to do prison ministry, so blessed. Served for 8 years teaching at the local rescue mission as well. Housed homeless people on purpose and on accident when I was in Israel one time. That's for another day. But I love reaching out to them because I was one of those people who was a drunken loser that should be dead on a curb somewhere, years ago. So I love reaching out to them, and I love impassioned speeches that encourage people to do that. I do think he might not be the right one to give this because it looks like he might even be wearing the same clothes, but he's at another event. This is with Pat McAfee and some of the guys there on ESPN talking about Michigan. And here's what he says of why he loves Michigan so much.
I'll be honest, Pat. I probably shouldn't say this on national TV, but if this came down to the battle of the growers, I'm riding in Michigan, baby. So we're going to put this Michigan up there. That's going to be blue, baby. My favorite place to partake in recreational activity in America. Of the great thumbs up there.
Notice the same passion for both. And why I'm bringing this up is because so many people, come on, he's just a young Christian and so forth. He's just talking about getting high and how everyone else in Michigan loves to get high. Isn't that just so great to practice pharmakeia and witchcraft, after singing up there at the Dove Awards and telling everyone they need to go and share and so forth. And this is a reality of the double-minded man being unstable in all their ways. And this is a reality of just because somebody is popular and famous, you shouldn't listen to them for spiritual guidance and have them up with a microphone in their hand. If he wants to follow Jesus, that is so awesome. But let's actually get him discipled. This is one of the most important things, that we bring people towards righteousness, that we're actually people of the word, that we come to Jesus and that sanctification process does begin. But when somebody can brag about getting high and telling people this is my favorite place to get high right after talking at the Dove Awards and telling everyone how they need to go after the least of these, I'm sorry, this is not someone I need to take advice from spiritually. This is not someone I trust, and he does need to repent. And if he loves Jesus, he needs to go and remain quiet and listen to him, follow his word, trust in him. And I think too many people think that celebrities help to fortify their faith because they also believe in it too. And it becomes embarrassing. And the things that he has said against the church for many years on many different podcasts and is now up there at the Dove Awards tells me everything I need to know about the Dove Awards, let alone the other people that are getting awards there at the GMA Dove Awards. So I want to encourage you guys, this is a time of righteousness, that we would go after and seek after Christ, that you would not be mired in the nonsense of so much of the CCM when these people don't seem to even follow Christ, and yet they're the ones leading you in a procession of worship. Let's make sure we find people that we can actually trust and know, and hopefully it's worship leaders at your church that love Jesus and want to sing unto him, that you can be fortified in your faith, that you can grow, because God still does inhabit the praises of his people, and I believe those are people that are actually following him. This has been Chad Davidson, and this is the 511 News. Thank you guys so much for watching 511 News. You can check out some of the older episodes as well as the Good Fight radio show and videos we have right here on our YouTube channel. And this week's featured product is Wrestling with Discipleship. You can get it at wrestlingwithdiscipleship.com, goodfight.org, or amazon.com.